From the studios in beautiful Oceanport, New Jersey, welcome to the biggest and greatest podcast ever. I'm your host, Ray K. Hey, everybody. This is one of those exciting podcasts that you don't want to miss. I mean, this is a unique guest. I've known Winston for probably a year on Facebook. I had the pleasure of meeting him last week in London. So Winston Ben Clements is my first international guest. He's in from London on the line. Winston is a resilience, change management, and diversity specialist, an inspirer, an innovator, an influencer, and his mission, check this out, is to inspire 1 billion people. And I think he's on his way. He's a motivational speaker, a TED speaker, has a lot going on. And he also has, I can never get the name right, but I believe it's Osteogenesis Imperfecta, which is a brittle bone disease. And we're going to talk about everything. Winston, let's just get right into this. Can you describe what is and the different levels of the osteogenesis imperfecta? And when did you first find out that you were different?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me so much, Ray. And, I'm so glad we got to connect.
Absolutely.
You came over to visit last week.
I had a couple coffees, boy. The coffee was good there in London, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, London's not really known for its coffee, but I guess, you found something special, which I hadn't realized that we had before. So, yeah, awesome.
Yeah. But when did you find out that you were different? And tell us a little bit about the osteogenesis imperfecta, please.
Yeah, sure. So I've actually had the condition since birth, right? So It's a condition that I was born with. And I mean, osteogenesis imperfecta, it's a bit of a mouthful to say. And I guess that's more the scientific medical name for it. But it's just basically brittle bones. So I was born with with bones that are much more fragile than the average person. So for me, typical challenges for me would be, growing up, I couldn't, for example, if I was playing with, my sisters or other kids my age, as a kid, I had to be super careful because if I fell down or if I got pushed, or you just know how kids play, sometimes they play rough. If, in their case, they might, it's no biggie if they fall down. In my case, if I fell on the floor, for example, it could mean multiple fractures, which I don't know if you've ever broken a bone, Ray. But,
I never have.
Yeah, and I wouldn't wish it on you or even my worst enemy. It's not a fun experience. And so I sort of had to manage that. And I guess when I was younger, I had a lot more bone fractures than I do now. But that's probably partly because A, I was still growing into my body, and B, as a child, you just tend to do a lot more stupid things than you would as an adult.
How many fractures did you have? I mean, how many?
Yeah, I was thinking about this recently.
Hundreds, or is it 10, or just no idea? How many were there?
Yeah, so probably between up to about age 12, I was probably breaking something every month, pretty much.
Whoa.
So we're talking in the region of 150 by the time I was age 12. And then probably lifetime-wise, probably 200 or so.
And when was the last time you broke a bone?
So I've been fortunate. I haven't broken anything major in probably about 8 years or 10 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nothing major. But, I mean, there are little things which are fractures, but I wouldn't, it doesn't compare at all with the types of injuries I was suffering when I was a kid. So
you're growing up, you're breaking bones once a month, which I imagine on the 1 to 10 pain scale is probably near the 10, I would think, even though I never broke it, but I'm gathering it's pretty high. When did you find out that, I mean, did you, when you were a kid with your family, did you know that, that you were different than some of the other kids, or did you, grow up happily? And then was there any incidences, or, was there a moment when you said, hey, why is everybody doing that and I'm doing this, type of thing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one because, and I get this question a lot, right?
Yep.
Because people, because I am different and I look different, and of course I've had to face some different challenges. But in my view, because I've always had the condition since birth, I haven't known any other way of living, right? So it's not like I was able-bodied or I didn't have brittle bones, and then all of a sudden I had it. So I
Mm-hmm.
haven't really got any. I don't really have anything to compare it to. So I guess the first time that I sort of realized I was a bit different was when I went to school. So first day at school, I showed up there, and it was cool, but at the same time I realized that I'm now in an environment where perhaps people hadn't been used to seeing someone who looked like me. So the other kids, initially, they were a bit cautious about approaching me. And I guess even the teachers didn't really know how to handle me because I was a fairly unique looking student.
Now, Winston, to give my listeners a visual, how tall were you then? How tall are you now? Your weight, what's your physicality? Just for my listeners to get to fill in the color of all this.
Yeah, sure. So for anyone who hasn't come across me or my images or videos, so I would say I'm probably between 3 and 3.5 feet. I haven't measured it recently.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be about the size of a 5-year-old maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I use a wheelchair. So at the moment I'm using a motorized wheelchair. And but in terms of sort of my facials and how I look in terms of appearance, you can tell that I'm an adult, so I haven't got childlike features.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I am a lot smaller than the average adult. So
when you go to school, you're small. You're like 2.5 or 3 feet.
Yeah. So back then I was even smaller, right? So what I've described to you just now is today's Winston, but Winston of 25 years ago was of course much smaller and probably a lot more fragile back then because I was still, as a kid, you're still growing into your body. So I was a lot more vulnerable than I am today. But yeah, I think school was the first time I started to realize that maybe I would have to find ways of connecting with other people because on first impressions, I realized that people were a bit cautious about approaching me and about speaking to me because they didn't really know how to communicate with someone who looked like me.
Okay, right. Did you get that? Did you have that one good friend? There's always that one friend you seem to find. Did you find him early on, or what was that like?
Yeah, to be honest, I think what helped me as well, Ray, is probably because I'm quite a social person.
Right.
So even whilst I realized that I was, a little bit different and maybe I would have to be a bit more proactive than the average person about making friends and about building connections and relationships. So I think that gave me the mindset of I don't need to sit back and wait for people to come to me.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, even from my early days at school, I just went with the mindset of, okay, fine, if they're not going to come to me, I'm going to go to them.
Okay.
So, if there's games happening in the playground, they might be a bit hesitant to invite me over because they're thinking, "Ooh, can Winston play? Can Winston play catch? What can Winston do?"
Right.
So I sort of realized it would be up to me to sort of put myself forward for things, and if there are things that I can't do, then it's up to me to sort of raise my hand and say, "Hey, this is not for me," as opposed to sort of sitting back and hoping that people would somehow figure out what I needed to feel in order to be included.
Now, when Winston, the personality comes out, I'm going to venture to guess that you became very popular in school. I just have this feeling that, because I've met you the way you are, you're very likable, you laugh, you're friendly. I mean, it's the whole package and you just feel good around you. Did this come across the school eventually by the time you hit 10, 11, 12, 13? I imagine you were very popular. Am I accurate?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think you're 100% accurate.
Okay.
I think, and to be honest, I think it's. I think because I've always had to almost go a little bit out of my way to figure out how to make people feel comfortable around me. Because, like I said, initially there's always that first impression, right? This guy, he's clearly got special needs. He's clearly a little bit different to all of us. And so for me, I put the responsibility on myself to to make my friends, to make my, my fellow students at school, and later on to make my colleagues and, associates feel comfortable and at ease when they spend time with me. And so I think I've developed that skill, that empathy to judge how people are responding to me and to just use my hopefully natural good humor and social skills to just create a situation where people feel like, Winston, he's a cool guy. I like being around him.
So it's almost like you're building a little base in yourself of what you're doing now. I mean, the perseverance, the whole thing, the inspiration, the diversity. It's like you're building this stuff up going through school. Like you don't know, obviously, when you're going to be in your 20s that you're going to be this great speaker. But I mean, I could see how it's building. You got this experience that is going to come out later on. Right? I mean, everything you're saying you're doing now, you sort of had back then, or you're building it anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought of it that way. So I guess without knowing it, I was almost preparing myself for, for the position that I find myself in today, right? Because as a speaker, if I'm going to say I'm speaking about resilience, I'm speaking about diversity and inclusion, and I'm helping people to learn about those topics and those subjects, then, perhaps what has helped me or what has given me a sense of authority, authenticity, and, a sense of people saying, hey, I feel like I can listen to Winston is maybe the fact that I've actually lived some of those things, so I've had to be resilient. I've had to overcome some physical stuff. I've had to go out of my way to make different people feel comfortable and included when they're around me. So that's a really good way of thinking about it.
So you're authentic. I mean, there's nothing fake about this. I mean, you just hear your story, you're just looking back on it, of course, and then moving forward. But it's all there. Then when you see you, it's like, hey, there he is. I mean, this guy survived all this and he's a great guy. And, it's, I mean, it all just fits. Were you named after Winston? Yeah. Were you named after Winston Churchill? I always wondered that.
That's a good question. I don't think I was. My parents say they just like the name Winston.
Okay.
So I don't think there was any particular deep strategy in terms of how they name me. They just like the name.
Okay. I want to ask you one more thing in this section, Winston. Then I want to get into some of your lessons, to kind of get into it a little bit. If you give us like a little mini motivation thing. But what is a typical day like for you? Okay, you wake up. All right, what happens then? All right, you get out of bed. Like, what's a typical day for Winston?
A typical day is that there is no typical day.
Okay.
But let's say if it's a speaking day, for example.
Okay.
Let's say I have to do a talk at a conference, which is probably my most typical day, I guess. So on that day, it would either, depending if it's a local event or I need to travel. If I've traveled, then it means I'll probably spend the night in a hotel. And then I get up in the morning. I have a morning routine. So my morning routine takes about an hour. So I like to just have that time to myself in the morning. No phones, no social media, no email, just Winston time for a whole hour.
Get ready for the day, relax. You get ready, you kind of get into it a little, like for that hour. That's what you. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, just focus my mind, do my meditation, do my prayers, do my, do some reading or something to grow my mind, and some exercise as well. Believe it or not. So that's all happens in my first hour of the day, and then.
So you exercise every day, I imagine so, right? Or
I try to, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever I do my morning routine, then part of that is exercise.
Which helps keeps your bones strong, I would think, right? With the brittleness. Then maybe I don't know if that's why I didn't have a broken bone in 8 years, but I would imagine exercise helps that. I would think.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So that's sort of building physical resilience, right? Because you're sort of putting your body under a bit of stress, and when your body is exercising, not only do you grow stronger physically, but it also releases endorphins, right, which make you feel good. And then sort of just kind of fast forward that day will be typically traveling to the venue, get there nice and early, get on the stage if I can beforehand, before the audience comes in, get a feel for the stage, do my sound check and that kind of thing. And then And then I just sort of have a bit of a alone time as well, just before I give my talk, and I do some visualization type of work, just for 5 or 10 minutes, almost like think of it like a meditation. And I just sort of visualize how I think the talk is going to go, how people are going to respond to it, and hopefully visualize giving a lot of value to that audience. So, and I think these are things anyone can apply, anyone who's listening. So you almost get to start off by giving yourself some time to just be present in what you're going to do that day and set your intention. And then if there is something particular that you're doing that day, whether it's giving a talk or, presentation or any activity, even going to your day job, then just give yourself some time to visualize how that day is going to go, and just to give gratitude, because we're all in a unique position to be able to do the things that we do.
Wow. Okay. You just gave me a great segue for my next segment then, Winston. What can you give us, a couple of lessons, in your speeches? Like, what are some lessons you give our listeners that you like them to be inspired by?
Yeah. So a couple of things that jump out. So first of all, if you go on my website, you've probably been on my website, Ray, and you'll see what the big tagline when you go on my website is: your limitations are an illusion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I like to say, because I believe that's probably one of the biggest life lessons I've received so far. And it's just to say, it's a simple lesson, and it's just to say that we all have days when, we all have good days and we all have bad days. Life is going to happen to all of us. And the way I like to put it as well sometimes is that it's going to rain on all of us. Whether you're born in a mansion or whether you live on the street, it's going to rain on all of us at some point. And, when that rain pours on you, you get to choose your response in that moment. Now, I could have, and maybe even justifiably so, I could have looked at my disability and said, hey, you know what, Ray? I'm not going to be ambitious. I'm not going to try for anything, because anyway, society doesn't expect much of people who look like me or people who have my type of background. And I think this is relatable not just to disability, it's relatable to finances, to gender, or any other challenging background or adversity that we might face. So you could either be in that victim mentality, but where I believe the true power is when you take a mindset of extreme ownership, where you say, okay, fine, perhaps I haven't been dealt the best cards in the world with my finances, with my relationship, with this disability, but at the end of the day, it is my responsibility to find a way to win with those cards. And I believe taking this mindset of ownership actually puts you in a much stronger position to affect your results, because you're no longer just sitting back and waiting for life to happen to you. You're actually being proactive and saying, okay, things are not perfect, but where are the opportunities to kind of make some progress despite the obstacles and adversity that I'm facing in life?
It's almost like the one door. I don't know if it's the one door closes, then 5 doors open. There's, I guess, through these earthquakes, good things can come out of them. Is that sort of like a lesson?
Yeah, pretty much. And also, just emphasizing that taking a mindset of playing the victim or just complaining or just looking at the downside all the time. I mean, you could do that, but it actually doesn't give you any opportunity to develop or to get anywhere closer to your ideal outcome, right? So if you moan and complain and say, oh, I wish things were different, it might feel good because maybe people will come over and they'll give you attention and they'll say, they'll give you pity and you'll be able to have that attention from people. But at the end of the day, having that mindset of complaining will leave you exactly in the same dark place that you were before. So for me, I believe the only way to overcome challenges is to be proactive, and is to say, okay, things are not great, but what is one little thing that I can do today to kind of bring me even half a step closer to where I'd like to be?
Is it okay to have a little sympathy for yourself and maybe feel sorry for yourself and eventually get out of it? I don't know if it's like a process, or do you think it's like, all right, maybe take a day, you had a rough thing and now tomorrow we're gonna go at it, or right away immediately like say, hey, I had a rough situation, but I'm gonna look at one good thing that happened out of this today and build on it.
Yeah, it's tough, and I think that's an answer that depends on your personality. For me, in my case, I think it also depends on the situation, because I've had situations, for example, where, let's say a relationship that I was in didn't turn out so good, and, you have a breakup, and, I'm sure many people relate to this. You have a breakup and you feel bad. It's really hard to reframe that moment where, you're feeling quite emotional, maybe quite upset, maybe even quite angry about the things that have happened. But what I like to do when it comes to those types of things, I give myself permission to feel whatever it is that I need to feel. So whether it's, heartbreak, whether it's pain, if it's a health situation, whether it's frustration, if it's a business deal that didn't work out, almost put yourself on a stopwatch and say, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to feel bad about this for 24 hours, 3 days, a whole week, yeah? Well, however long you think you need. But after that, I'm going to have to start looking at ways to get beyond this. And I'm going to start listing out or putting proactive steps into place to find the silver lining despite this chaos that's happening in my life right now.
Right. Okay. And Winston, did you growing up, going back to the growing up, going through everything, breaking your bones, all the things that everybody else goes through, you got to go through every normal stuff. And now you're going through the extra stuff, with your, is it a disease? Is that what it's called? Would it be considered a disease, this brittle bone disease?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
Yeah. I'd say so. Yeah, okay. I'm not a medical expert, but yeah.
Did it affect your mental health? Did you have high anxiety? Did you have any of that kind of stuff? Depression, any of that kind of thing sink in, or are you kind of free of that?
Yeah, to be honest, mental health and those kind of things, I believe everybody has good and bad mental health. And I think there's a bit of a stigma as well, because one of the topics that I speak about actually is related to mental health. And I think there's a bit of a stigma sometimes because people think only, certain people suffer from mental health challenges, but I believe we all do. Even if you wake up and, you might have had situations where you wake up and you're feeling down, or you're feeling like you don't want to get out of bed. And, most people have these down days, but we never really class those days as mental health. But I believe it is related, because just like you can suffer physically, just like I could, touch wood, fall down and break a bone, in the same way I could just wake up, feeling not so good or feeling a bit dejected, despondent, and have a bad mental health day. So when I was growing up, actually some of my biggest challenges were more on the mental side than physical, because I found myself questioning whether I'd be able to have any kind of good quality life. Because it's pretty hard, right? You're lying in bed, let's say you've broken an arm and a leg, and you're not able to do anything for yourself. And you're going to probably be in that bed suffering a lot of pain for the next 3 or 4 weeks. It's really hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel in that moment. And so I found myself thinking, is this how my life is going to be? Am I ever going to be able to have a job, to get married, to have relationships, to buy a house, to travel? Because I've always had really big ambitions, but at the same time, I knew that I'd be perhaps restricted because of my health. And so I think that's where the mental health side of it came in, and that's where the doubts, the anxiety came in a little bit. Although I was never diagnosed with anything. But like I said, I believe we all have good and bad mental health days. But some of the things that started to help me to snap out were just mostly around the support network and the people that I put in my circle, beginning with family when I was younger, and later on with coaches, with mentors, with people who I've met, people who believed in me, even on the days when maybe I struggled to believe in myself. And I believe this is important for anyone listening, because we all have those ups and downs, good and bad mental health days. And so a good way to snap out of it is to just have that buddy or that coach, that mentor who can kind of say, hey, dude, this is just a rough patch. I still believe in you. I still believe that you can achieve the success and all the dreams that you hope to achieve in life. And that was a big help for me.
That's interesting that everybody suffers from some sort of mental health or complication. Just being human, basically. When you're saying you're in bed for 3 weeks, I mean, you're a human being. I mean, everyone's going to feel like, is it hopeless, or is this thing ever going to end? Yeah. Or, like the standard type of, feelings. What, Winston, advice would you give to someone that's looking to get into what you're doing for a living? Motivational speaking, what are some tips?
Yeah, sure.
I don't mean to segue away from that too rapidly, but, I want to fit a few other things in here,
No, that's cool. Yeah, so in terms of anyone looking to be a speaker, there's not really a blueprint for how to be a speaker. So
okay.
I've been fortunate to meet so many people who are, super experienced and have been speaking for many years, some of them 10 years, some of them 20 years. And pretty much all their stories are different as to how they got into speaking. But what I would say, I guess my tips would be, first of all, well, as you probably know, Ray, public speaking is one of the biggest fears for most people. So people are super afraid to go on stage.
It's like right next to spiders and snakes, I think, isn't it? Isn't it like way up there high, I believe? People.
Yeah, actually,
right.
I think there was a survey, and I think this was an American based survey that said a crazy high percentage of its respondents, I think it was something like 80%, said that they were more afraid of speaking on stage than actually dying.
Whoa!
So,
wow. Okay. Okay. That says it all. Are you nervous?
Yeah,
are you nervous up there when you go on stage? I mean, does it affect you? I mean, do you get a little nervous when you get on that stage?
I do get a little nervous, but I think it's not the kind of nerves or the kind of anxiety that freezes me. It's the kind of nervousness that you get when you know you're about to do something important. And in a way, I'll probably reframe that more as a sense of excitement or anticipation. Because for me, nervousness is almost like the rabbit in headlights scenario where you freeze and you're not able to do the thing that you want to do or the thing that you were supposed to do. For me, this is more excitement. And I guess the top tip for anyone who's perhaps a little bit anxious about speaking on stage is to just try and be yourself on the stage. Because maybe one of the first mistakes, or one of my early mistakes when I became a speaker, and I was really anxious to begin with, was I probably have a little bit of ego involved, because I'd be thinking, how do I look on stage? How does my voice sound on stage? What are people thinking when they see a disabled person speaking on stage? So I had all of these thoughts that were mostly to do with how I was coming across. But when you actually take ego out of it and just focus on service, which is, I have an important message to share, and I don't really care how I look. I don't care about my clothes, my hair. I don't care about, whether I'm disabled or not disabled, tall, short, fat, thin. I don't care about any of that. All I care about is delivering an important message on the stage and helping somebody, even if it is just the one person, be able to apply something that will give them a shift to improve their quality of life. So when you switch the focus from ego into service, then I think that helps a lot. And then the second sort of final tip for anyone looking to get into speaking is join something like Toastmasters. I don't know if you know about Toastmasters, Ray, but
I've heard of them.
Yeah, it's just a public speaking meetup, and they're global. So they're in pretty much every country in the world. If you go on the website, toastmasters.com, just find your local meeting and just go there and see if you can get an opportunity to get in front of an audience and start testing your message and testing some of your lessons to see if this is something that you'd like to do going forward.
Okay. Excellent. Who were some of your heroes? I mean, do you have any heroes, whether it's public speakers or motivational speakers or just regular, people, anyone that really, that you admired, growing up or now?
Yeah. I have different heroes for different things. So I guess Growing up, obviously, my parents, totally look up to my parents. Probably especially my mom now, because she's been through some of her own health challenges as well. So she's had to overcome some really serious illness, and she's bounced back from that a couple of times. So she's become somebody who I really look up to, and somebody who really inspires me to keep going, because actually some of the challenges that she's faced with her health are 10 times bigger than anything that I've ever had to face with my brittle bones disorder. So, and I think sometimes you almost need that perspective of, you know, whether it's a parent or anybody else that you meet, meeting somebody who's actually overcome stuff which you could never even imagine was possible. So my mom was definitely that for me. And then maybe on the speaking side, you know, so many great speakers that I admire. But one guy who stands out for me, and this is a guy that you know as well, Ray, is Sean Stevenson.
Yes.
So he's
Right.
based out in the US as well. Actually, we have a very similar background, because he was also born with brittle bones disorder. And so he's gone on to impact millions, if not, you know, tens of millions of people with his videos on YouTube and his speaking at live events. So he's become a massive influence over me, and I've been fortunate to meet him as well. So,
Nice.
So find a mentor or find a role model who's crushing it in the area that you want to become good at.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Winston, this is my last segment too. I call it hit and miss, which is a word association. And this is, you know, how I could really reveal what my guests are about. You know, it's a word association. First word that comes to your mind, or a couple words. Are you up for this? I mean, this is a little difficult, but you know, I always have it on. So you ready?
Let's play.
Okay.
Let's play.
Okay. Favorite color?
Black.
Okay. Okay. If you were on a deserted island, what two music CDs or albums would you bring with you?
Oh, wow. Okay. Do people buy albums anymore?
I don't think so. Whatever they're called now. I don't even know what you would call it. Is there a word for it, or a download? I gotta look that up. Yeah.
So my music taste is massively varied. So maybe I'll give you a couple of genres that I would take. I would definitely take something on both ends of the scale. So when I want to chill out, I'll listen to some reggae, because I find that really soothing and something that I can just sort of have in the background if I'm reading a book or something. So perfect for a deserted island. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I also like stuff that is pretty upbeat, and that could range from either hip hop or even to rock and roll. So if I want to raise my stake, want to raise my energy level, then I'll listen to anything with a fast beat, or anything that allows me to kind of get my body moving to bring the energy up.
Okay, nice. If you were in a foxhole, other than a family member, who would you bring with you? You like that one?
I do. Other than family, yeah, I probably wouldn't even consider bringing a family member. I would probably bring someone who's a really good problem solver. And the person that is jumping to my mind right now is one of my cousins. His name is Ben, and he's just a really, you know, whenever you need anything, whenever you need a cool head under pressure, he is that guy. So if I was to find myself in any sort of deep hole, I would want him with me, because whereas I might be panicking a little bit and thinking, how are we going to get out of this? My cousin will be like, oh yeah, you know, all we need is to just figure out how to, you know, how far we need to climb up in order for one of us to boost the other one out or something. He would come up with something super simple and just take the heat out of the whole situation.
Okay. The cooler head guy.
The cooler head.
Yeah. Favorite movie?
Oh, I like a lot of movies.
Or a couple. You can throw a couple out if you like.
Yeah, actually, the one that really jumps out for me right now is a movie called City of God.
Speaking of God?
City of God.
City of God, okay.
Yeah, City of God is, I'm sure many of your audience will know about it, but it's based out it was actually filmed in Brazil. and it's just based on the story of it's almost like a rags to riches type of story of a little boy who grew up in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And, I'm trying not to spoil it for everybody, but he sort of went from very humble beginnings to be able to do some pretty big stuff in a tough environment that he found himself in. And then it's got a few twists and turns, but yeah, that's one of my favorite films, City of God.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get it now. Okay,
check it out.
I like those kind of movies. Favorite actor or actress?
Okay, I'm really bad with names of actresses and actors, but I'm going to go for something really generic, and that's Will Smith. Okay. And that's just probably more than his acting. I actually like his mindset, because he's actually been doing a lot more inspirational video stuff now.
Okay.
I got to know him earlier on, probably like most people. When he was doing that sitcom in the 90s,
yes,
Prince of Bel-Air.
Right.
Yeah, but nowadays, to be honest, I see him more as a almost like a influencer, motivational speaking type of character nowadays. So that's probably why I have a soft spot for him.
Oh yeah, no, he's some all around guy,
Yeah.
Most famous person you ever met?
Ooh, interesting. Probably Sean Stevenson, actually. So the speaker that I mentioned earlier, who's also got brittle bones. So I had an opportunity to meet him last year in Arizona.
Okay.
And that was pretty cool. Pretty famous. He's got, like I said, tens of millions of followers. So
right. Okay.
Big.
Ocean. What comes to mind when you hear ocean?
I love the water. So I'm actually an Aquarius. That's my star sign.
Oh, okay.
So I feel happier and I feel more at peace when I'm near the ocean. So I believe, at some point when I settle down or when I decide to fix my location, it's going to be somewhere near the water. Not sure where yet.
Okay. That was a good word I picked, huh? For this. Okay.
That was really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite sport?
Football. And when I say football, I mean soccer, not
That's what I thought. Okay. Who's your favorite? Yeah. Who do you follow? Who do you root for?
Yeah, so I have a couple of
yeah.
There's a couple of teams who I really like. I'm not as crazy about the sport as much as I was when I was younger, but
okay.
I definitely follow Manchester United. So that's one of my teams, and then the other team is a smaller team which you might not know of. And they're called Queen's Park Rangers. I like them because they're kind of my local team, so they're not too far from where I live.
Okay.
Whereas Manchester United it's a big team. Everybody knows them. They're global, but they're not so close to where I live because I'm in London and they're all the way up in Manchester.
Okay. What do you think of American football? Do you ever watch it, or any opinion on it? American football?
I haven't. Yeah, I've kind of been exposed to it a little bit. So I've got family in Boston. And they're all big Patriots fans, so I sort of do get into it if I go to hang out with them. And let's say there's a Super Bowl or something happening, then I try to get into it as well. But yeah, there's a lot of rules. It's actually really complicated, so I think I need to spend time understanding it and kind of understand everything that there is to know about it.
Okay.
One day enjoy it.
I could give you 10 minutes and I'll have it all for you one day. I
could please break it down for me.
Yeah. All right. A couple more. America.
Yeah. So I love America. Like I said, I've got family in different parts of America. I've got people on the East Coast, Texas, California as well. So I feel, and actually many people here in the UK say that I have a bit of an American way of being, because I just seem to connect with lots of Americans, whether it's family or just people like yourself.
You do. Yeah, exactly.
I just seem to attract them somehow. So maybe I'll just come and live over there at some point and be one of you guys for real.
Absolutely. Come on over. Winston Churchill. Might as well put him in there. What comes to mind when you hear his name? He's one of my heroes, by the way. I like Winston, so don't say anything bad about him. But what do you think? What comes to mind with him?
Yeah. So he was actually a really strong orator. One of the best speakers of all time. So, that's in a way, perhaps that was a bit of a premonition with my parents naming me after him, because I never really thought of myself as somebody who could go into speaking. I was always into IT and technology and gadgets. But yeah, being named after somebody who was such a big influence and such a strong speaker has, in a way, perhaps played out to me wanting to follow his example and his footsteps in becoming a really strong orator and communicator.
I thought I thought you were named from it, so I thought that would have been the ultimate thing, how great of a speaker he was, orator, and then you doing your doing, it's just a cool type of thing. And when you Google your name, do you know you come up with Winston Churchill? It's all pictures of you and him. I don't know if you ever did that, but it's kind of interesting.
I haven't, but
yeah, you and Winston.
I'm going to do that straight after this.
Yeah. All right, one more, then we're done. If you had one wish, Winston, for humanity, other than world peace, say, what would your wish be?
Ooh, do you know what? My wish would be authenticity, because I feel like we live in an age where people are a little bit, not everybody, but many people are afraid to show who they really are or to express how they really feel. I don't know about over there in the States, but here in the UK, sometimes we can get ourselves a bit tied up with what they call political correctness and, almost trying not to offend anybody, which I believe it has its merits because, of course, you want to control or you want to protect people who are more sensitive. But at the same time, I believe we should all be allowed to express our not necessarily opinions, but our ways of thinking, because we're all unique, we're all diverse, and we all bring something different to the table. So, what I would wish for the world is that everybody be able to express their authenticity and feel free to bring all their positive gifts to the table without fear of being judged for being different.
Wow, that would be fantastic. Yeah. Wow. Okay. I hope that happens, because that's what it should be about.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Well, I know your mission is to inspire 1 billion people. I think I'm like 9,746,225, but you got me in there. Winston, thank you so much, for coming out, and spending your time. That was great. I wish maybe we'll have you on again, down the road, because, there's a lot more to talk about with this. That was Winston Ben Clements. He's all over the internet, so just Google the name, Facebook, whatever it is. I mean, it's a great story. I'm Ray K. Winston, I want you to have a great day, and let's talk soon, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, and anyone looking to connect with me, it's winstonclements.com. So just go on the website and just find me on social media. I look forward to hearing from you.
All right. Winston Ben Clements, I'm Ray K. We'll catch you next time.